Good evening and welcome to the June 5th meeting of the Des Moines City Planning and Zoning Commission. I will start by reading our rules and procedures. The Planning and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans and subdivision plats, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. The applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. The applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed and the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless an individual present or a member of the Commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. First, could we have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
I'll move.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Any abstentions or passes? Thank you. We will now move to the consent public hearing items. Item number 1 was a request from Invest DSM for review and approval of a public hearing site plan and for a Type 2 design alternative in accordance with City Code for property located at 1100 Clinton Avenue to allow construction of a House D with a 5-foot street yard setback along 11th Street, where the required setback is 26 feet. Would anyone in the audience tonight like this item removed from consent and discussed? Anyone on the Commission? Okay, item number 1 will stay on consent. Could we have a motion to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. And we will move to our public hearing item. This is a request from Angela Brown for property at 1900 Arlington Avenue, and Srioshi will, do I need to read it? Will she just address it?
Go ahead.
This is a request. Determination as to whether the rezoning is in conformance with Plan DSM. Amend Plan DSM to revise the future land use classification for the property from low medium density residential to high density residential, and to rezone the property from N5 neighborhood district to NX1 neighborhood mixed district to allow the reuse of the existing structure for multiple household residential with up to 5 dwelling units. And Srioshi will present tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Srioshi Chakraborty, planning staff. I will be presenting this rezoning item. And the request is from a property located at 1900 Arlington Avenue. As just mentioned, there's a twofold request. First of all, to amend the land use classification from low medium density residential to high density residential, and to also rezone the property from N5 neighborhood district to NX1 neighborhood mixed district, which would allow the use of the property for 5-unit residential use. This is the subject property. It's located at 1900 Arlington Avenue. This is in the River Bend neighborhood area. It's fairly close to the 6th Avenue corridor and the neighborhood node of 6th Avenue. It's at the intersection of Arlington and Franklin Avenue. This area is predominantly residential with a rich mix of various housing types as well as densities. As you can see in the map, there is single family as well as multifamily and smaller scale multifamily, including duplexes and fourplexes. This is the subject property, and it includes an existing building structure which is about 2.5 stories tall. It is in disrepair. It's an old house. It was built in, I believe, 1906. I have a few pictures here just to give you some site context. This is looking at the building from Franklin Avenue. There is a surface parking lot that allows up to 5 off-street parking spaces, as you can see here. This is a closer-in photograph. And you can see the building from another angle here. So it just kind of shows the state of the property and the building that currently it's in. So just to give you a little bit context and history, this item has come before you for an attempt to rezone the property. It was built as a single-family residential use, and at some point was converted to multifamily at some unknown date. It was a legal non-conforming use, which allowed the 7 units that it was being used before it lost its legal non-conforming status due to not having a valid rental certificate, and that was in 2022. Following that, the previous owner of the property had attempted to rezone to establish it back to the 7-unit use. This came before the Plan and Zoning Commission, and the City Council denied the request to rezone. Subsequently, the former owner took it to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for a use variance, which was denied as well. The current owner and applicant is attempting to rezone. However, the request has been modified. The current owner is attempting to rezone it to allow 5 residential dwelling units. This is a summary of the application that the applicant submitted. Just gives some background information on what the proposal is, what they're intending on doing. They're proposing some minor renovations, nothing major. They have also been given a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission recently, subject to certain conditions, and they're proposing to make some of those improvements as has been requested through the certificate of appropriateness. So I walked through some of the relevant zoning history, which has also been outlined in detail in the staff report. So there was the rezoning history. Most recently, as I just mentioned, the Historic Preservation Commission approved a certificate of appropriateness. This is within a local historic district, and the condition of approval have been listed here. And so the applicant is required to make those improvements as per the conditions of approval that are listed here. I want to talk a little bit about the density and the location of this particular property. This is located in an area which is within an established neighborhood that is in close proximity to amenities such as transit, commercial uses, schools, parks, and so on. Therefore, it is something that does conform to our land use goals and objectives, which is to encourage development and redevelopment in areas that have access to existing infrastructure, amenities, and so on. Additionally, staff does believe that the proposed multifamily use with up to 5 residential units is appropriate in this area, given the mix of densities and housing types that are in this particular neighborhood. So it fits well within the context of the area. So given those factors, staff does support the request to rezone the property to 5 dwelling units. However, we do have concerns about the parking and believe that the maximum number of units allowed on this property should be restricted to 5 dwelling units, and that is based on the fact that there are existing 5 off-street parking spaces, and given the density and the lack of parking in the immediate area, that is an important consideration that staff took into account while making the recommendation to approve the request. One more thing I'd like to point out, should the rezoning be denied, the applicant does have the ability to use the building as one residential unit, which is allowed by right as per the zoning code. However, due to the recent state of Iowa legislation that allows an additional accessory dwelling unit on a residential property, the applicant has the ability to have a second unit as an accessory dwelling unit in addition to the one household dwelling unit that's allowed by right in the zoning district, so long as the second dwelling unit does not exceed 1,000 square feet or 50% of the existing dwelling unit, whichever might be greater. So that is the condition in terms of utilizing a second dwelling unit as an ADU or accessory dwelling unit on the property. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the zoning request from N5 to NX1, subject to the use of the property containing no more than 5 dwelling units, as shown here. With that, I will move on to the applicant's summary of the neighborhood meeting. The applicant is required to do a neighborhood meeting with the adjoining property owners, and that was done on May 22nd. Here is a summary of the attendees as well as some of the discussion that occurred during the meeting, and I will just zoom in here so you can look through this. The applicant also provided a presentation that was shared with the attendees of the meeting, which is similar to the information that was shared with staff with the rezoning application packet. And I'll just walk through this quickly. Please let me know if you would like me to stop at any point. We received some comment cards back from the property owners in the vicinity of the subject property, and I will just flip through these. We also received a letter from the president of the Riverbend Neighborhood Association, and this is a copy of the letter that was received by staff. And finally, this is the consent map showing the percentage in opposition within the notification area. So it's at 30.7%.
Sure. I always forget, what's the level where we would need more support at City Council?
It's 20%. So since this is over that, it will require a supermajority.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Shiroshi, could you walk us through on the staff recommendation, that second paragraph from the bottom, where you talk about going to the Board of Adjustment? I noticed that one of the concerns of the neighborhood was rezoning. If they were to resell the property, the zoning would be attached to it. If they went the ZBOA route, that doesn't require rezoning?
Yes, that is
So-
correct.
Would that variance be transferable to another seller, or would the seller, a new buyer, have to go back before ZBOA and get a variance? Does that make sense?
It would run with the land.
It does.
A variance can sometimes have limitations, like time limitations that might be attached to like the life cycle of a building, or maybe they're attached to, the operations. If it was more like a business and there's an operational model, you could attach it to that and it not be transferable. Just anybody, but it had to be that type of operation. But it would, but we wouldn't be able to limit the ownership specifically.
Any other questions? Chris?
I'm curious on the logic, and I don't know if it's something that we can actually change. I'm concerned, because we do this regularly, that we're justifying density based on access to public transit, yet limiting the number of units based on off-street parking restrictions. On-street, it makes no sense. We do this all the time. It's beyond irritating. I mean, this house here, there's other irritations for the next phase of this discussion. However, on-street parking makes neighborhoods safer. It slows down the streets. It makes streets safer for pedestrians. It puts more eyeballs on streets. It makes neighborhoods safer by increasing visibility, increasing engagement. And so we want on-street parking, especially in places where we have access to public transport. So I guess I'm wondering here, because it's illogical, the argument for a restriction because of that. I'm fine if there's another restriction, right? I guess later discussion. However, on this, can we at least strike that justification within the limit? Because having off-site parking as a justification, if we keep saying it, causes a precedent which is damaging to the further growth of our neighborhoods, especially if we're trying to densify and missing middle. Is there a chance of just striking that justification and just using something else as a justification for a limiter?
Yeah, that's in the body of the staff report. It's there.
Can we get rid of it?
I mean, it doesn't have to be a part of the commission's deliberation. I think we are just trying to balance the, impact. I mean, we're certainly encouraging folks to use transit, to use on-street parking. But I think our thought was trying to find a landing spot for what's a reasonable number of units in this building, and that's part of how we came to 5 was the off-street parking.
I'd like us to strike that thought, because it's irrational relative to the strategy of the overarching city's growth plan.
It's in the report. It was part of the last one. We're not going to change the staff report.
I do.
Sorry.
I have some questions. So, the staff acknowledges it doesn't conform. What was the reasoning for, it doesn't conform with the current low-density plan? So why are we recommending a change to versus honoring that plan?
So the low medium density residential allows up to 12 units per acre, and the size of this lot is, I think it's 0.183. So when you do the density calculation, it's like 27 point something dwelling units. So it requires a high density residential designation to allow those 5 units on that size lot. Therefore, it requires the high density residential designation to allow the 5 units on the property.
So can you explain to me why the zoning board of adjustments passed on this?
Their decision to deny
Yeah.
the use variance.
They felt that it didn't meet the test for the use variance. I mean, it's that. I don't know that there was more to it.
Well, this seems like we're taking a hammer to big, like a very small item here. We're making a big decision about rezoning one parcel that the neighborhood and the city has already approved. The neighborhood requested, the city approved. So I'm just asking what the justification was and how you can make this decision. And then I have some other questions. But,
Well,
so what's different? So we've already seen this once. What's materially different?
well, our staff rec is essentially the same as the last. So
The big difference would be the previous owner wanted to reestablish it back to the 7 units and was fairly firm that it needed to be 7 units. In this case, I believe the applicant is requesting 5 units and also express some openness to look at potentially 4 units. So that would be, I would say, the biggest difference.
So do you think that the ownership is not attached because it went from a $715,000 $100,000 sale to $48,000? Are they associated? Because all of the transfer of tip from LLC to LLC is all $1 and starts with Starlink and who had originally approached us. And so is the ownership the same? And they're just avoiding, like, coming up to us,
I
like
think
different people?
I don't believe so. I mean, the applicant's here tonight. I think we'll
Yeah.
let the applicant speak to their item,
Yeah.
their ownership. I mean, I don't know that we have anything to add to that.
We can confirm it's not a straw voter. I know the owner, and I know they took a bath on this one, so no.
Okay.
The other group lost 350 grand on this
Okay.
because we didn't approve this last time, and we're now, yes, looking at the same thing with the same irrationality. And yes, the last time, I think we made a bad choice then. We shouldn't do it twice.
Any
have a
other
question.
questions for staff at
Yeah.
this time?
I have a question. I know we're not looking at a site plan, but understanding the parking situation, if this moves forward to a site plan level, would the city generally allow the parking to stay in the same location on the site?
Yes. It's
Okay.
there. It's grandfathered.
Okay, thank you.
So I had just clarification. Is that okay? Did you ask your questions? Yeah. Is it vacant right now?
It is currently vacant.
Okay, and so I just want to, because I wasn't part of the previous conversation, the only reason why it stopped operating or lost its zoning or its official designation to be multifamily is because it lapsed and it was vacant, is that correct?
The rental certificate expired.
But it had been vacant too, I believe.
It has been
Yeah,
vacant
it was
as well.
vacant, and the previous owner that came before us purchased it as a vacant property, but they didn't realize, they in their due diligence, it didn't come to their attention or whatnot.
Right.
The-
So-
The rental certificate had expired, there was nobody in it legally,
Okay.
it lost its legal nonconforming rights.
So this was a single-family home that was subdivided, and since it has subdivided, has only operated as a multifamily building, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably been operated as an apartment, for decades.
Right, so because I think it gets confusing when we hear terms like high density, but we're actually, in this particular case, talking about decreasing the density or downzoning in that sense, even though the official term is higher. So I think we want to, because it isn't good for neighborhood, vacant buildings aren't good, right? Homes need to be occupied, so I just wanted to clarify that even though the official zoning designation might be speaking to higher density, we are in fact decreasing now, in this case, the density on the site.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that high density moniker, that's the future land use, and it's how that category, our land use plan right now, like many, speak to, units per acre as a way to try to, certainly, people also have a visual of what high density
Exactly,
is
that's what
versus-
I wanted to clarify,
Yeah.
because it's a trigger word where
Right.
people
The high-
start like
really, in
worrying.
this case, it's being called high density because of that numerical
Right.
ratio.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question too. So if we approve the land use change and then also the rezoning change to NX1 with the restriction of 5 units max, since the NX1 zoning does allow 7, at some point in the future, if the current owner or a future owner decides they want to then increase to 7, come back in with another plan, does that come back to this commission?
Yes, because there's a zoning condition attached to it, they would have to come back to the commission to get the condition removed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? If you'd like to come forward, state your name, address, and you have up to 10 minutes, and then sign in on that white sheet when you're done.
Okay. I'm Angela Brown. I currently reside at 33295 335th Street in Waukee, Iowa. So I don't know if you want me to go through the presentation, but I did hold a neighborhood meeting and kind of gave some background about me and my husband. My husband, Eric Brown, he's here with me today. He does have, background in law enforcement, so our plan is to live there on site. And so we would definitely vet the tenants that we have move in here. It's been sitting there, for a while. I understand that it's a pretty, eyesore. So my vision is to make this home, beautify the home and continue to, beautify the neighborhood. Are there any specific questions for me, or would you like me to run through this is the presentation I presented on May 22nd. Can I control this, or do you have to do it from there? Okay.
If you want to hit the highlights, otherwise,
What's that?
if you want to hit some of the highlights of your presentation, that'd be
Yep.
good.
So obviously, the purpose of the rezoning was to have this reclassified from a single family to a multi-family home so that we could, at least rent some of the units there. We do want to continue renovating the units. In order to turn it into a single family, it would cost way too much, and it's just not feasible at this time. I know the previous owners had already started renovating it. They had done 4 of the 7 units, and we've started renovating the other 3. But now, knowing that we're not going to rent, all 7 units, but we have started that work, and I think it just makes sense to continue down that path. As mentioned already, there are 5 parking stalls that are there on site in the lot there. To me, it didn't make sense to, try to rent all 7 units when you don't have enough parking, but I think from what I'm hearing is that on-street parking is fine. I'm not sure I fully understood that discussion there. Again, we'd be very particular with the tenants that we select to live there with us. We do background checks, check references, maybe even hopefully have people that we know personally live there. And then this is just a summary of the interior renovations that have been done so far. The previous owners did, put in new flooring, kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, toilets. Some of the work that we've had to do is to the ceilings and some wall repair and things like that. So not major renovations. And then, as mentioned earlier, I did get approval for a certificate of appropriateness to repair the porch on the east side of the home. It's falling apart, and then there's a door on the north side that's a steel door, so we would replace that with a wood door to go with the historic nature of the home. And then there are 6 windows that need to be replaced, and we would replace those with wood windows. And this is just the original state of the property when we purchased it. Just broken windows, peeling paint, missing siding. The roof may need to be replaced as well. There is a wall in the basement that's pretty bold, so we'll have to get that checked out as well. And then this was just a vision that I have for the property. I mean, I just tried to find a home that looks, similar in structure. Are there any other questions for me?
Hi. I noticed that the exterior egress stairs have been removed since we last saw this project in your photographs. Is there egress within the building, so no need to add something back onto the exterior, or do you know what the plan is there?
There is an egress within the building. It's that back door that I need to replace. It's a staircase that leads to the units 5, 6, and 7 that are on the upper levels.
Well, I would like to welcome you to the neighborhood.
Well, thank you.
How is it that you came from Waukee to this project?
Oh, gosh. So we're off of 335th Street, which is Mill Civic. I don't know if you know the area. So it's between Jordan Creek and Grand Prairie. And they are currently expanding our street to be like a 4-lane and eventually a 5-lane. Traffic's already crazy with the Grand Prairie opening up the freeway there. So they're also looking to annex us with West Des Moines. And so with that, we're going to have like a 25% property tax increase. So just a lot of factors that kind of drove us to that decision.
It's crazy how you find, I'm like, how do you go from Waukee to, but a project so large like
Yes.
this?
Yeah, I love renovating homes anyway. I've taken classes on tile work. I've done flooring. I do my own painting. So this is a project that I'll be, hands-on with.
How would you feel about it being just a duplex? Because you're living there. Do you want to manage 5 different families in your home?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't have any concerns with that. I mean, we'll be on site, so if there's, anything goes wrong, we're there to fix it or, call a repair person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for me?
I have a couple. Just curious what the square footage of the home is total, and then also if you have 7 rooms, would you renovate it to where it would just be 5, or you'd still have 7 and 2 rooms would just be like common areas?
Yeah, what was your first question?
Just curious what the total square footage of the house is.
It's
Yeah.
over 4,000. I
Yeah.
have the assessor pulled up on my phone, but I can't remember.
That's good enough, just approximately. Okay.
Yep. And then, so there's 2 units on the second floor that we plan on turning into like a 1 unit for my husband and I. I think that was your second question. And so some of them wouldn't remain 7 units, obviously. Currently, they're all like 1-bedroom units.
Thank you.
I got one more. This may be a question for Jason. The certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Commission, is that based on the density, or is that just based on the exterior renovations?
Yeah, the commission just reviews the work itself. They don't have anything to do with the use, other than like, if you needed to move a door to create, but had nothing to do with.
So they've not commented on whether they think 7
No.
units is appropriate or
Yeah,
5 is
it's
appropriate?
not their.
Okay, thank
not
you.
their, purview.
I'm sorry, and one more quickly. So now this is a new applicant. Would zoning board of adjustments be an opportunity or an option, please?
Yeah, like any request for a rezoning, if it fails, an applicant has the opportunity to apply for a use variance after that, so yes.
Is there no concern with any of the restrictions and the rendering? Is that in line with what
The-
staff intends of the front?
rendering, the image,
Yeah, of the
that she
front
showed.
door.
Well, first I've seen it, but it doesn't reflect what would probably be approved. I mean, that's a very modern.
No, it's not what the house will look like. I just tried to find something that was similar, a similar view and what the paint colors would look like. So
Okay.
just for illustrative purposes only.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in favor of this item? Please come forward. State your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes, and please also sign in when you're done.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lulu Dickey, and I live at 1814 Oakland Avenue, which is approximately 300 feet from 1900 Arlington. I come before you tonight to advocate for a compromise position to rezone this property to N54, which will allow for 4 units rather than the requested NX1 designation for 5 units. For the 5 years I've lived in this neighborhood, this property has been a blight, boarded up, deteriorating, and attracting criminal activity. From our home, we can see this eyesore daily. The current owner has indicated that she is open to the N54 option, which would allow her to move forward with the rehabilitation while providing important protections for our neighborhood's future. In our neighborhood, we have seen how out-of-state investors buy up multifamily properties, extract profit, and abandon their responsibilities to tenants and neighbors alike. They view our neighborhood as nothing more than a revenue stream. The N54 designation keeps this property within the N5 category, making it less attractive to these predatory investors while still allowing Angela to create viable housing. This is about protecting our neighborhood's future from those who would exploit it. I support Angela's choice to increase the density or to make this a multifamily property because she plans to live at the property with her husband. I also believe that by allowing 4 units, she could combine some of the smaller efficiency units into maybe a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, which would make room for families in our neighborhood. I have deep empathy for my neighbors who will later advocate for single-family zoning tonight. For years, that designation was one of the few tools that we had to stabilize and rebuild our neighborhoods. But I believe now we have more tools at our disposal and can be more nuanced in our approach. Riverbend deserves to be seen as a neighborhood of opportunity. We deserve the same thoughtful consideration given to any neighborhood in this city. This compromise in 5-4 zoning balances the need for viable redevelopment with protection against future exploitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this item? Anyone neutral? Or opposed? Please come forward. State your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes and sign in when you're done.
Sure. Kyle Johnson. I also live at 1814 Oakland. 5 years, lived in the neighborhood. Property at 1900 Arlington has looked marginally better than that, but very similar. I see it from our house all day. It's been a blight on our community. Realistically, it's going to be hard to move it back to a single-family home, given the lot size. I support rezoning it N54, 4 units. Allow the current owner to improve the property while keeping it less attractive to, predatory investors we've seen over the years, and maintain it properly. It's in a prominent position in the neighborhood. It would be beneficial to have it fixed, have the eyesore fixed, and have a person that is, owner occupying care about it and fix it for the the improvement of the neighborhood. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Please come forward. State your name, address. You have up to 5 minutes. And also sign in when you're done. Michelle will help. Got it.
Okay, I am Diana Rezak, and I live at 1917 Arlington. So I live directly across the street from the property, and I oppose this. And the reason I oppose it is because our neighborhood is too dense as it is right now. So what I did is you will see that there's a map, and the pink is 1900 Arlington, and the yellow is all the multi-unit rental in the neighborhood. So I took a walk in the neighborhood, and this is basically the area I walked. And what I found is that at the intersection of Arlington, Hickman, and 6th Avenue, the big yellow square up at the top, there are 50 units. If you go to 1809 University, bottom right, you will have 36 rental units. If you go to 6th Avenue at 1815 6th Avenue, you have another 36 units. Right across the street from 1900 is 24 units at 253 Franklin. Down the street on Arlington at 1940, we have 9. At that same area, we also have 7 at 1959 Arlington, or 6, excuse me. There's 7 at 1811 6th. We have a 5-plex at 315 Franklin. We have 4-plexes at 511 Franklin, 1825 Oakland, 1820 Arlington, 1818 Arlington, and 1814 Arlington. We have a triplex at 1908 Arlington and duplexes at 1924, 1926 Arlington, 401 Franklin, 513 Franklin, 517 Franklin, 1907 and 1909 6th, and 1905 and 1903 6th. I did not yellow coat any of the houses that are single-family rental. So there is even more rental in this neighborhood than what you see in yellow. So right now, we are extremely dense. And so I, in summary, am opposing this because we already have a large amount of rental. And to address parking, I'm a landlord. Each of my tenants has 2 cars. To address busing, my previous tenant at my property, 1917 Arlington, could not get a bus from Des Moines to West Des Moines, and she wanted to get rid of her car. The Browns purchased this house as a single-family residence. They knew exactly what they're getting, and I believe it should stay that. I was a resident of Sherman Hill. I've lived through the blight. I am still a landowner in Sherman Hill. And I will tell you, the property value, the neighborhood value increased with every home that was butchered into a multitude of apartments and then was brought back to a single-family residence. So that is what I would like to see, is a single-family house. And I thank you very, very much for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in opposition? Please come forward, state your name, address, up to 5 minutes, and sign in when you're done.
Hey, gang. Good to see you again. Ben Spade, 1934 Arlington Avenue. This is the second time in a year we've been here, so perhaps a little refresher. Starlink came in front of you wanting 7 units. You all shot that down. Part of Mr. Draper's gripe was that there were only 5 off-street parking spots. So it seems a little weird to kind of flip-flop on that. Additionally, they got a second bite at the apple. So if we go back and look at the YouTube video, you said, how would 5 be due to off-street parking and other reasons? And she sort of coalesced with that. You voted again, and it was no recommendation to the city council either way. So it doesn't seem like we're going to really get a different result. And if we do, is it because of something arbitrary? What is the reason? I'm not here to tug on your heartstrings or tell you what I want, but I'm just here to say, the rules are the rules. If a rental certificate lapses, it goes back to a single-family unit. To do otherwise makes me wonder, are we opening, a whole new can of worms where there might be other opportunities, other gray areas? And, to Diana's point, if we want to see the entire neighborhood brought up, what do? It takes time, it takes effort, it takes money. If I won the lottery, that's what I would do. I would, beautify this neighborhood, perhaps starting with a 1900. I guess that's it. I hope, again, the decision tonight isn't an arbitrary one, but it's based on facts. and the rules that are put in place for this historical district. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition, please come forward. Again, please state your name and address for the record and sign in when you're done. Up to 5 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Chad Nelson. I live at 1236 9th Street in the Riverbend District. So I had a list of things that I was going to say, and then a lot of information has been shared, some of it accurate, some of it not so much, some of it opinion. But I'm going to start where I was going to start, and I'll address some of those things at the end. I wanted to deliver a brief history as a reminder to the Commission on what the neighborhood has gone through since it was originally constructed in the 1800s. Starting in 1926, Des Moines zoning code allowed for multifamily housing in this neighborhood. At that time, there was a big rush to chop all of the houses into multifamily units. The house I live in, for example, was once 6 units. It is now a single-family home. Some other people behind me here are also living in single-family homes that were once multiple units. This intense conversion of homes to multifamily altered the density of the neighborhood, and by the 1960s, the United States Housing and Urban Development declared Riverbend a slum. It existed in that state until the 80s and 90s when the Riverbend Neighborhood Association started to push for promoting home ownership in the neighborhood and reducing density. By the 90s, the city was beginning to agree to those efforts, and in 2000, a house right down the street, which is 5,000 square feet, which was, I don't even know, 12 units. It was a veteran's home at some point as well. Same issue, it's too expensive, it's not feasible. During that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Dan Flaherty stated, I believe it is a disservice to the citizens for allowing the zoning to continue as long as it has. They are now taking the steps to try to go back to single-family residences in an area that used to be all single-family residences. If the commission is going to promise the citizens that single-family residential is the vision for the area, then it should be followed through. That was in 2000. In 2012, the city rezoned the entire neighborhood back to its original state of single-family, not multifamily. This is how the neighborhood was designed and built. And then in 2015, you all spent 18 months devising a master plan for the future of our city, and it clearly states that this area is low density. And then you just on a whim say, who needs that plan? We're just going to decide and rezone it how we want. Yeah, so we're on the right track. You know, the neighborhood is improving, houses are improving. It's been in this state for 100 years, and this is the opportunity. This is why this exists. This reverted back to its original zoning of single family by design. That's what the city wanted. That's what Riverbend wanted. So this is the opportunity. And I hear that it's too expensive and it's not financially feasible. This house sold for $48,000. I own a small historic preservation business. $48,000 to fix this house, paying $48,000 for this house. You had plenty of time to file for state tax credits. Federal tax credits are still on the table. State tax credits still feasible, even though with the silly law that so that's going away, but it's still possible, but there was ample time to file for that. So with a combination of the state historic tax credits and the federal tax credits and knowledge, this is easily fixable to a single family home. And it would be a very nice home to live in. You might not make a ton of money on it, but if it was your intent to move into this place and live here, absolutely possible. Again, living in a house that used to be 6 units, now a wonderful home for the Riverbend neighborhood. And lastly, we've been through this all once before. This was denied in front of Planning and Zoning. It went to the City Council. Chris Coleman said in that meeting that he believes, yes, that Des Moines needs to explore more options for a variety of different housing, and he clearly stated that this neighborhood and this property is not the right answer for that. Flat out, this is not right. Unanimously denied. City Council went to the variance board, also denied there. Yeah, so obviously I oppose the rezoning of this building in any form. And I just wanted to make sure that I caught everything else that people had mentioned. Oh, yes. She says she might move into the house. No guarantee that that's going to happen. We've seen what happens in this neighborhood if this is rezoned, because we've been living this experience for the last 100 years, 50 years at the very least with this property. We know the potential.
Your time is up.
Okay, we know the
Please wrap
potential
up.
of what could happen because we've been living it, and this is our opportunity to reverse those decisions. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition, please come forward. Please state your name, address, your 5 minutes, and sign in when you're done.
I'm shorter than Chad, so I have to lower the microphone. My name is Kathy Halstern. My address is 803 Hickman Road. I am here today to provide the input of the Riverbend Neighborhood Association. First of all, thank you all for giving us a moment to provide that input. We do appreciate and take very seriously the requests of this commission to find out how the neighborhood is thinking on topics. Once again, we find ourselves having difficult discussions about this complicated issue. Just like it did nearly 2 years ago, the fate of this property divides us. You've just witnessed the two sides, and we are split as a neighborhood. But as we worked through the discussions yet again, it became clear that the one thing we could agree on is that upzoning this single-family zoned place to NX1 high-density residential is not appropriate for this property on that corner in that acre of the neighborhood. When a neighborhood has been through what our neighborhood has been through, density must be handled carefully and deliberately. And we believe that NX1 is too much for this property because of the allowable number of units. We can see the future of this property because this is what happened to this property at a 7 up to 7 unit allowable. So at this time, we cannot support a request for NX1 for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Okay. Applicant, you do have up to 5 minutes for a rebuttal if you'd like. If you'd like to address any of the concerns that were brought up or say anything else.
So I just wanted to respond to the comment that, you know, it's uncertain that we'll be moving there, and we do plan on putting our house on the market this month, hopefully within the next week or two, so that is our intent. If there are any more questions, I can answer them, otherwise, yeah.
One of the gals mentioned that you had said you were okay with an N54 designation instead of NX1. Is that, I just wanted to confirm the accuracy of that
Yeah,
statement.
is that, what is the difference, though? Is that between a 4 and a 5 unit?
Yeah, the N5-4 zoning, the 4 means a maximum of 4 units. So in essence, putting the zoning district names off to the side, it's a difference of 4 or 5 units between what we understand you've applied for versus. But
Yes, yeah, we would be open to that.
But you would also consider a duplex if you had any options at all?
Meaning a 2 unit? I'd prefer more. I mean, we're not trying to get rich on the property, but I would consider going from a 5 to a 4.
That's the question I wanted to ask. It sounds like you're new to the rental property business. Is that right?
Yes, I've never owned a multi-unit.
Right. And so I'm wondering if you all have gotten to the stage yet of building your business plan and looking at how much you'll need to charge for the rental units, because I think we need to be aware of the fact that changing from 4 to 5 units changes the affordability of a unit. So I'm wondering if you've thought about how that would affect your ability to maintain the property and keep it financially feasible if you went to 4 units from 5.
Yeah, I have not yet.
I want to be careful that we're not kind of overstepping into the responsibility of the owner and, their pro forma and their.
Right.
It is.
Cost of the rentals is important.
I mean, it probably is our responsibility as citizens to other citizens, though, to ensure that items that should be considered should be aware. I guess another question is, if I'm doing an N54 versus an NX, doesn't that actually change the restrictions on the type of renovations to be allowed from an external perspective as well?
Not. So the difference from the building typology, there are less building type options. So for instance, N5, you're pretty much stuck with the house type D, where the NX1, you can look at house type D, house type C, row houses, and a flat building, I think. But we're dealing, this is a little bit more complicated. We're dealing with an existing structure, which is, and then on top of it, it's in a historic district. So ultimately, any of the design work, we're going to be reviewing it through the guise of historic preservation. So at the end of the day, I don't know that whether from architecturally speaking, if NX1 or N5, there's really any difference or benefit to either option. Obviously, if this building burnt down and it's zoned NX1 and they come in to build new, they would have more options for building typology but dealing with this existing historic structure, it's not really it doesn't matter. It's more about the number of units.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will now close the public hearing and open it up to the commission for discussion and motions.
I have a question for staff. With the potential N5-4, would that still require a land use change to high density, or would that fall within the low to medium density?
Yeah, I'm going to let Shreya, hopefully she's done the math on that.
Yes. So with the 5 dwelling units on the 0.183 acres, it comes out to be 27.3, which is in the high density category. With 4 dwelling units on the same area, it comes out to be 21.8 dwelling units per acre, which still is in the high density residential category. So it would require that change.
Thank you.
Okay, I know we're going to discuss, but I'm going to send this out. I'm just going to float this out there. I feel very strongly about not taking one parcel and absolutely rezoning it, because we don't know who will own it later. So I'm going to float that I'm going to deny staff. I'm going to make a motion to deny staff.
Deny the request.
Any discussion on that motion?
Well, how about we have a discussion?
Yeah.
I'd just like to put out there that we have a discussion, right, before we take moves.
Yeah, so obviously there's a motion we can discuss and we can either turn down or not, and I'm obviously going to be voting against, but I do want to also clarify the misrepresentation of my position regarding parking. I have not flip-flopped on this. My position on this has been very clear. It's data-driven. The fact is off-street parking should not be used as a justification of density reduction, which effectively is what we're doing when you're looking at the use case of this, regardless of the zoning of it. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because, especially when there's no indication of limitations to on-street parking does significantly improve safety and security in the neighborhood through reduction of street speeds, through increase of eyes on. And I think as Diane identified, as an actual landlord over in Sherman Hill, where we do have significant on-street usage, we do end up with safer, better maintained, and more walkable and community security neighborhoods. So that part of the walkability, I just want to make sure we're clear on what my position was there. Having empty streets in these neighborhoods speeds it up, makes it more dangerous, so we shouldn't be using off-street parking, especially in a neighborhood, as a limiter of density.
I have a lot to say. I agree with what we do is we look at lots and rezone them. We do this, or discuss them. This is what we do every time we're here. I have feels, clearly, and part of that is because we have these conversations week after week. I'm waiting for a neighborhood to come and either talk about tenant protections or their plans for economic integration within their community so that we can all live in a thriving city that houses people at all levels of affordability. And we could talk about the history of Riverbend and why it is that outside investments happen. That piece was missing from the history, which is because the people who lived in that community couldn't have access to federal loans, right? And I will also tell you that I study rental property owners, and this is the dream. These folks who want to live in the community, who want to invest in the community, who want to have relationships with their tenants, this is what we should all be fighting for in all of our neighborhoods. This is going to be significantly improving a property that is decreasing property values in this community, increasing, which, by the way, research tells us that high-quality rental housing increases, again, a professor, I'm going to bring in my knowledge, increases property values. I think it's problematic when we have other rental property owners in the neighborhood coming and speaking against competition. I think it's a problem when we don't have young people who can't find housing in the neighborhood, people whose this would improve the house quality in the neighborhood, and people whose children can't live in the neighborhood because there isn't housing that they can afford in the neighborhood. Right? I don't know what is it going to take for us to come together as a city? I know so many feels, but like this happens every week, and everyone says we don't want tenants in our neighborhood. I want tenants in my neighborhood. I want property owners who care about the community, who buy in the community, who invest in the community, and I want neighborhood associations that welcome them and integrate them and share a vision of a city where we can all live. I know, I'm sorry, so many feelings. This is a fantastic project. And I'm excited and thank you. So that's what I say. I'm obviously, whatever my vote is, it's for. I approve staff. I'm happy about it.
Sorry.
Excuse
me.
I lived there with a child.
We need to bring
The
order.
public hearing portion of the meeting is over. I know there's a lot of feelings about this, but we are going to follow our procedures and have an organized discussion.
Let me echo that I agree with Jane's comments. I think she forthrightly hit all the really tangible points. To me, it's a pipe dream that a single-family owner would spend $600,000-$700,000 for one family to be in the unit for this house, when we have an opportunity to have the owners committed to living on site and having 4 units, which would be affordable for other 4 families living there, whether it's 1 or 2 or even 2-bedroom or 3 bedrooms. So, and the property's been vacant for years, as reflected in the purchase price. I think this is an improvement, and I would support the rezoning.
So procedurally, just to make sure I'm clear, so in order for us to hit what Francis and Jane are looking for,
vote on that.
yes, we'd have to deny that and then come back with potentially a compromise position, which is the 5-4, which the future homeowner and future owner occupier does think would be a good outcome, which does get us to a middle ground density, which does get exactly what we're looking for in this neighborhood, which is someone coming back from Waukee into our city, which is what we have aggressively wanted as well. Is that procedurally correct?
Yes. Procedurally, we'll vote on Carolyn's motion, and then it'll be open for new motions. Shall we do that now, if it fails? Okay. Let's vote on the motion on the table, which is to deny the request. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, motion fails, and as Chris described, we'll entertain additional motions. Or more discussion?
I don't want Jane to murder me, so, but if we can, then put on a motion to approve staff with a modification that it be converted to an N54 would be what I'd like to propose.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion?
I've struggled with this one because I voted to deny last time because I really respect what the people of Riverbend have done, and it seems like we're not listening to the people of Riverbend, and I feel like we're also not listening to what the city plan was. The city, there was a plan in place to convert these back to single-family homes. However, this property is just, it's such a disaster right now. I just don't know what else is going to happen to it. And I really wish that someone had come in and bought it for $48,000, or the neighborhood had gotten together and pooled their pennies and bought it and worked to sell it to somebody for a duplex or something like that. And so I'm really struggling with what to do. I didn't vote with Carolyn last time, and I probably should have, but it's a real struggle for me because I understand what the people of Riverbend have done. So I hope this compromise position is maybe the best move to make. I'm still on the fence.
I guess what I would point out is that while we have people from Riverbend in the neighborhood, here in the room, we do not have all interests in the neighborhood. I would love for a neighborhood association to bring tenants with them. We know that across the city that neighborhood associations are more affluent, more likely to be homeowners than most of the people living in the neighborhoods. There are future tenants. I mean, there's future residents. There are any set of interests that aren't here in the room. We have rental property owners in the neighborhood, homeowners in the neighborhood, and people who've invested in upgrading their homes.
I think we have tenants in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Do we? No, in here, in the room.
Is there anyone who's a tenant right now? No. Okay. Sorry.
Is there anyone here that converted an eightplex into a single family that is now listed for $715,000, and you spent $200,000 for it? We spent $54,000, and you can convert to a single family. So that's that argument is not no. And we shouldn't be judging that. That's not our job to decide if it can be a single family or not. So
yeah.
I'm disappointed because I feel like the purpose, we're supposed to listen to what the neighborhood wants, and I think that and what the city had planned and what they had agreed to. So that's all. I'm just disappointed in that because there is another option. They have the Zoning Board of Adjustments. They have that opportunity.
And again, I would just say we don't have the whole neighborhood or all the interests in the neighborhood in the room. And I do think that we need to be mindful of that we're representing the city, right, and a broader set of interests.
If there's no more discussion on the motion, let's take a vote, which is to modify the staff recommendation to be zoned
N5-4.
N5-4. Thank you, Jason. All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Do we have any director's reports or other pieces of business, like a reminder about the schedule?
Yes, actually, that's what I was going to just remind everybody about the schedule and upcoming next couple meetings. June 26th is our next meeting, so it's a little bit off schedule. We wanted to move that with the Juneteenth holiday to avoid that conflict. And then in July, with 4th of July holiday, we've typically canceled that first meeting in July, so we will not meet. We'll only meet one time in July on July 17th. So over the next month and a half, your schedule is going to be a little bit different, so just bear with us and hopefully keep that in mind. Thank you.